Today we're going to show you how to cook the perfect steak and give you all the tips along the way. Now we're going to demonstrate this with a sirloin steak, but equally you can swap that out for fillet, rump or ribeye, whatever's your personal preference and fits into your budget. What you need to do though is prepare your steak. So bring it up to room temperature before you cook it. You get a much better, even cook. Remove it from the fridge an hour or so before you need it. Just leave it in the kitchen covered with cling film. And then you need to season it. Raw steak needs seasoning well with pepper and salt. And you want to do that on both sides. Next up, you need to prepare your pan. Make sure it's really hot before you start cooking. If you're using a cast iron griddle pans, because of those griddle lines, it's better to oil the steak, not the pan. The same applies if you're cooking on a barbecue. If you're using a frying pan, then get your fat in there to fry it. It'll either be oil or butter. If you're using butter, make sure it's foaming before the steak goes in. Today we'll demonstrate on the cast iron griddle, and for that reason we'll oil our steak. Given the thickness of this steak, we want to cook it for about 1 to 2 minutes on either side. That'll give us about medium rare to medium. If you prefer it more well cooked, just add on 30 to 45 seconds per side. All you need to do is place it into the pan away from you so there's no spitting if it's going into fat. And that's why you want a really hot pan. Avoid moving your steak as it cooks, that'll give you the perfect lines, and after 1 minute or two, give it a flip. Once you're happy it's cooked on both sides, if you're cooking something like a sirloin, you might want to crisp up that layer of fat on one side. So just hold it up on one end, just to sear that fat. When you're happy it's cooked, the most important part is resting a steak. And you want to rest it for about the same length of time as you've been cooking it. So put it on a plate and just cover it with a piece of tin foil to keep it warm as it rests. While we wait for that to rest, I'll show you a tip to make sure that you can cook the steak just the way you like it. This muscle here in your hand is the best comparison to a steak. And if you press it, that kind of consistency is the same as a rare steak. If you hold your index finger, you can feel it gets a bit more tense. That's about medium rare. The next finger along is medium. The next finger medium well, and finally well done. It gets more and more tense, and all you need to do is make the comparison between your steak and the pan. And when you're happy it's close enough, take it off the heat and leave it to rest. After resting the steak, remove the tin foil, and you can see that's partly why we rest it. You get a few juices come out of the steak, and if you put it straight onto a plate, then you'll get those on your plate. The importance of resting is that the outside of the steak is really hot. It's just come out of the pan. The inside should be cooked just how you like it. What you need to do is wait for temperature equalization so it's a nice, consistent color. At this point, we'll show you exactly what it looks like inside. A couple of slices will show you that awesome, juicy steak. This one, medium rare. Now, a few things to remember. Make sure your steak is at room temperature and seasoned before you cook it. Prepare your pan by heating it as high as it will go. Searingly hot for a griddle. If you're cooking in butter, make sure it's foaming. Cook it to the temperature you like, and you can always test that based on the consistency and your muscle in your thumb. And finally, rest it. Rest it for as long as it takes to cook on a plate covered in tin foil. And there we go, everything you need to know to cook a steak.